as an introduction, this is Louis Cole. So you might know him as FunForLouis as well. So he's an adventure, travel and social impact filmmaker. He's got over 5 million followers of his own across social media, a huge YouTube following of around 2 million as well. And he's one of the OGs within the travel video world. So yes, I'm delighted to welcome Louis. So today we're just going to sort of have a chat, really.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Yeah, I haven't been to this for years. I can't even remember when I was last here, but it's always a pleasure.
Yeah. Has anything changed since you were last here? And I guess in the whole travel world, I mean,
it's just expanded. I think, especially in the kind of new media space, social media being the kind of forefront of tourism boards and brands and tourism agencies kind of getting the message out to the world. And you know, back when I started doing stuff, it was probably 12 years ago.
Wow.
It was such a weird concept for so many people. Like, what do you do? What? Like, and now it's funny because it's like such a integrated part of our day-to-day life, social media. But back then it was so new and fresh. And yeah, it's exciting to see how it's all grown, really.
Yeah, and there's so many new platforms now that weren't around when you started. So I'm really interested about how you sort of you pioneered the travel vlogging effectively. So one of the first people to put a camera in front of their face and go traveling and show people around. So really kind of pioneering idea at the time. But yeah, do you want to give your thoughts on why you started that and what it was like to be one of the first people posting?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was like this perfect storm for me where I've always actually been into travel. Like my parents were quite adventurous, even when I think the first big trip I did was like when I was about 13 or 14. We ended up going to Indonesia and Malaysia, and it was just like such an eye-opener to the world to me. Such a different culture. And I think that's when I really caught the travel bug, because I'd done a bit of traveling in Europe before that, but it was, I mean, back in the 90s or whatever, I'd really opened my eyes. And even before I started doing stuff on YouTube, I was always like, had a little camcorder back when you had to like record on these little videotapes. And I was always capturing adventures and road trips we were getting up to, and did some wild trips. Even back in like 2005, me and some friends drove down to Morocco from London in a minibus that I bought. 2008, we caught a train from London all the way to Beijing, China, on the Trans-Siberian Railway. So this was like, you know, none of it was for social media. We weren't doing it to make videos, but we did capture bits and so yeah, I've always been into travel. And then when YouTube came along and I kind of stumbled into that space of making videos, I was like, well, what do I want to make content around? It's kind of a weird, how I got into YouTube was kind of weird because it was more around like doing like eating stunts and stuff. It was like, I had a channel called FunForLouis.
Okay.
That was kind of my accidental discovery of social media.
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, that's not really me. That's just a weird kind of thing I was doing. But then someone was like, oh, you've found yourself in this space now. What would you love to do? And I was like, well, I mean, I'm leading quite an interesting life. It might be fun to kind of make, someone suggested, why don't you just make videos every day of what you're up to? And then it just happened to be that I was like, well, the freedom that brings, and just, you know, I was in that phase of life where I'm just gallivanting off around the world. It just kind of all came together at the right time, where I happened to be in a phase of my life where I was really free, doing a lot of travel anyway, very passionate about capturing that. And then suddenly finding myself with a platform to share that with the world, really. And I think my main objective was to inspire people that there's an amazing, beautiful world out there to go out there, have adventures, whatever that looks like. It might be different for different people, but it was like pushing out your comfort zones. And I think, letting those experiences really shape you, because I think getting out there and seeing other cultures, seeing how other people do things, it can really broaden your perspective, and it helps you just form a more rounded I don't know, I think it just is so impactful to get out, you know. I'm sure everyone that travels knows that, but
Yeah, well, I'm sure there's some budding, digital creators in the audience and things like that. And it's interesting to hear how it started. So it very much came from you love traveling, you're traveling with your mates, having a good time. Like, did you have, in terms of the technical details, did you have a separate income? Did you have a job at the same time? Were you doing bits and bobs while you traveled? And then I guess also, like, when's the first time that you realized, oh, I could work with a travel brand here and someone might actually pay me to do this?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and I guess this is something I'd advise people to do that are getting into it, is like,
Yeah.
you you can survive on a surprisingly little amount of money. And I think, because I started in my 20s as well, and I didn't have, I've got a family now and stuff, and like I feel like back then I just was like, oh, where, it's funny, in my early 20s I really pushed it to the extreme of like, well, what's the absolute minimum I need to survive? And I remember flying out to New Zealand with some friends with basically no money.
Yeah.
I spent the last bit of money we had on like a little van.
Wow.
And then, no, I spent the last bit of money to fly to Australia, but I landed with no money at all.
Oh, wow.
And I couldn't even stay anywhere, like even the youth hostel. So I ended up sleeping. It was like a warm climate. I was like, oh, I could probably just sleep, just anywhere. So I found a cardboard box and I just like slept in this little hedge, and I was like loving life. And I just think,
Wow.
I'm probably at a different phase in life now, but I think what it taught me, even though I wasn't making YouTube videos then, was like, I can survive on not much.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So my beginning of my YouTube travels, and also like people are really generous, and I think if you've got friends that live places, you can kind of crash on their couch. So I went, the first kind of international trip I did once I started my channel was I went and stayed in LA with a friend on his couch for 3 months.
Oh.
And he was a YouTuber as well, but it was like, that was like, oh, okay, he's not asking me for chip in for rent, which was really generous. It kind of started that off, and it just meant I could focus on making fun videos and
That freedom.
and I didn't really, I just started to make a little bit money on, on YouTube, enough to like eat, and that's about it.
Yeah.
And then like, yeah, I think once I started realizing, I think because also it came from a place of like, this is really fun. If I can just about scrape an income, that was like, this is incredible.
Yeah.
I didn't think, oh wow, there's like a lot of money to be made here.
Yeah.
I think nowadays, like everyone sees YouTubers as like, oh, YouTubers are millionaires because it's just like there's so much money. But it's, I mean, it's a shame. I just speak to young people now that want to get into YouTube for the money, and I'm like,
No.
that's not what it's about. But I guess, yeah, as brands started seeing the content, seeing this authentic connection I had with my audience, and just very laid back approach to travel and what I'm up to.
Yeah.
Then I started having tourism boards or whoever like reach out, and just started getting opportunities to do brand partnerships. And that was like, again, just so exciting.
Yeah.
Couldn't believe it was real. I was like, what? This is
paid to do this.
And I think also back then it was, like I said, it was not a normal thing. It was just starting to happen. So I think now it's different because you see that happening all the time. You see influencers on every platform doing brand sponsorships, and it's kind of just a part of our the ecosystem now. But back then it was like, wow, this is mad. And I think you had to be quite a progressive brand or agency or whatever to be working with influencers back then.
Yeah, definitely. And it's very personality driven as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
What you were doing was purely what you wanted to do, and a brand saw you and they decided they liked that. This day and age is a little bit different, isn't it? It's more of a marriage between the two, and they have a lot more editorial sort of impact and things like that. But yeah, so to bring it up to sort of current day, you mentioned you're now father.
Yeah.
6-month-year-old. Yeah. Wow. So congratulations. But how's that changed your kind of outlook on, I suppose, travel, and your current projects? So what's in the pipeline? Are you moving into, we do some family travel or?
Yeah. So it's quite interesting. My wife Raya and me bought some land in Costa Rica because I think our long-term vision is we want to live. It's like in this eco village, and kind of like a commune, but it's like you've got your own separate plot of land, but it's like growing all our own food and living off the land and living in the jungle. And it's like kind of something I'd always dreamed of since I was a kid. Like when I was a kid, I decorated my bedroom as a rainforest.
Really?
And it was like, I always knew I was like, at some point in my life, I'm going to spend time living in the jungle.
Yeah.
Little tree houses and stuff. And so we bought land in Costa Rica. We drove down there we made a whole YouTube series on our couples channel, like driving through Central America in a converted school bus.
Oh yeah.
Which turned out to be pretty wild. And I think it was a little bit too much for my wife. Like, she was like, the risk and adventure level of this, it was like off the charts.
Yeah.
And I was like in my element. I was like, I got arrested. I mean, I'm not saying you should get arrested, but I got arrested in Mexico, like in a really dramatic way, like handcuffed, thrown in the back of a pickup truck, driven off.
Wow.
I actually kind of enjoy those adventures as long as there's not,
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to be in prison, but like I enjoy that kind of just just crazy stuff. But she was sadly not enjoying that. So anyway, I think that dawned on me then. If I want to do crazy adventures, I probably need to do that with some other friends.
Yeah.
And allocate a couple of weeks a year to crazy stuff like that. But then on our couples channel now, we're like toning down the extreme adventure.
Yeah.
It's still doing really fun travel. So so after that, we got married in Costa Rica. We did a tour of the UK in a camper van.
Yeah.
And on that, around that time, we got pregnant. She got pregnant.
Yeah.
Quite quickly.
Yeah.
And then we were like, oh no, Costa Rica's not really the home base for us yet, because we hadn't built anything and it was like early days. So then we scrambled and we were like, well, let's relocate back to the UK. I think anyone with kids understands, like, you have to kind of take a pause. It's been a whirlwind, and I knew we'd like take a bit of a pause and travel. We're very excited to travel now, but it's been a good season of just having a grounded home base and learning how to interact with this new little human. And it's honestly been like the best adventure of my life so far. It's something that has blown my mind. I knew I'd love being a dad, but I think it's blown my mind how fulfilling it feels, because I've always wanted to do big things and had to adventure around the world, and I've got a big appetite for life, and I think I never knew how content I would feel just being with my son. Like, it's so amazing. And I can't wait to show him, me and my wife can't wait to show him the world. And it's like, I think going back to places we've been, but seeing it through his eyes and getting to see him experience it for the first time.
Yeah.
It's almost like a fresh, a whole new fresh perspective. And it's just going to be so exciting to see him get excited about seeing, like, even yesterday we were in Hyde Park, and I was just like, there was like geese and swans like waddling up to us.
Yeah.
And he was like wide-eyed, like, what the heck is that? You'd never seen it before. And I was like, this is great. Like, I just like so beaming, like seeing this goose like waddling up to us. I was like, can't wait to take him on safari in like Kenya or South Africa and seeing lions and elephants. So it's going to be mental.
Like, you live it again. It's like Christmas, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Christmas gets a bit boring when you're all teenagers and early 20s, and then suddenly more kids come along and you're like, wow, this is really fun again.
Yeah, I can't wait to travel as a family. And I think we'll start ramping that up again soon.
Yeah, and I guess your priorities change. So it's, probably now thinking more safe vehicle as opposed to a camper van you've converted.
Yeah, well, at the moment, our kind of my compromise is, because my wife just teases me all the time that I've got 5 or 6 vehicles, but only like one of them actually drives right now. No, 2 of them actually. I think I'm going to have my crazy vehicles. I've got a camper van we can talk about it in a minute.
Yeah, sure.
I've got a camper van, like a 1973 camper van that I converted to electric. That's currently in the US, but it's not the safest of vehicles. Like, I agree with her, like, probably not the safest for road tripping with a 6-month-old.
Yeah.
So we recently bought like a newer modern, like Tesla, which is going to be great for road trips. And then I haven't said this publicly yet.
Okay.
But this is an exclusive, but we're going to buy a little bubble caravan, and the Tesla has a tow bar, and next year we're going to do up the caravan, and then we're going to do like a UK, maybe into Europe, road trip, like living out of the caravan as like a camping adventure, which I think is going to be perfect, really.
Yeah.
And it's also, for me, a big part of it being electrically powered is like the environmental thing, because I think travel often gets a bad rap as like, oh, traveling the world's so bad for the environment, flying everywhere. And there's truth to that, but I think we can start looking at more responsible ways to travel and how we get places and how we interact when we get places, how we can be you know, just doing it in a better way. So I feel like one thing is when we can, and if I'm road tripping and we can drive cars that are powered off renewable energy and electric, I think that's one solution.
Solar charging on the go and things like that. Yeah, that's actually, so if Frank's available. I was going to bring Frank up actually because he's done quite a bit of work with electric vehicles and stuff from the travel and PR perspective, and I think wanted to go into like your Tesla, I was
enjoying the fireside chat, to be honest.
Oh, well, yeah, you were getting cozy by the fireside, but
yeah.
So Frank, you've done quite a bit with electric vehicles.
Yeah, I mean, like from electric vehicle perspectives and looking at communities, like how are you like what's happening with communities in terms of bringing them into play with your content, I guess, and I mean, what do you feel the mission is for you as an influencer when it comes to the environment?
Yeah, I mean, I think the impact I have on the world has been a thing I've increasingly focused on, and also realizing I got this platform to speak to, you know, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people.
Yeah, millions, yeah.
So like, what is that message? Like, what do I want to encourage people? I think I said at the start, one of it was an inspiration, like get out there, explore the world, you know, have these experiences. But I feel like in doing all of that, it is about like, what are you giving back and how are you impacting the world around you? So I feel like I often scrutinize my own decisions in life, thinking like, I need to be doing things which I'm happy to share. And I'm not perfect. No one's perfect, right? But I think I want to be living life in a way and doing the best I can because I want to be a role model. Or if I want to be or not, it's irrelevant. Like, I think I am, whether I want to be or not, because people look at our life, they see what we're up to, they might be inspired to go and do something. So it's constantly this balance. And again, I don't always get it right. I think it's hard to live perfectly. But yeah, I think in terms of the environment and, you know, we're in a critical situation in the world right now. And I think we need to look at our, you know, carbon footprint and how we're, you know, our choices of what we consume, like supply chains of things that we consume, even our diet, all of that stuff. Like, how do we become less just these intense consumers of the planet and start doing things in a better way and give back and start restoring.
Yeah, I guess it's difficult. It's quite across the line, particularly when you're doing like a brand activate or collaborating with a brand for promoting consumerism. And
it's tough.
Yeah, to survive commercially as well and pay a wage to yourself ultimately.
I guess for me then it's like, can I at least find the brands that align with my ethics or and again, even then it's tough sometimes because I think brands cleverly greenwash things.
Yeah.
And you really have to do your kind of research and but yeah, I think that's for me.
Yeah, it's a challenging one in terms of the balance of survival, I guess.
Yeah, especially with travel because you want to inspire, and that hundreds of thousands of people would have traveled because of seeing what you've done. But you've obviously clocked up some air miles, as have all of us if we're in travel. So you're treading this ground between inspiring people to go and see the world, which is amazing, and you've got to do it, and then, you know, also not destroying the world for future, especially now when you have a child and you're thinking longer term. Yeah, it's a difficult one to balance, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so what are you up to with the electric vehicles then? Because that's one way you can obviously...
Yeah, have you set yourself a mission, I guess? Like, to try and...
Well, there's a few things I'd love to experiment with. I mean, I've always loved road tripping. So for me, road trips have been one of my favorite ways to travel. I think it's such a beautiful way to explore. And I think growing up in Europe as well, like being able to just nip across on a ferry or on the Eurotunnel, like you can so quickly, you know, I mean, I've driven all over Europe with friends. Like we drove to Istanbul, I've driven to Romania multiple times.
Wow.
So it's just like those, and I think there's different ways to do. You can do what's it called, like interrailing, like there's different ways you can travel. It's probably even better.
There is beauty in a road trip.
But there's something about road tripping. So then I was like, okay, we road tripped around Europe a couple of years ago, but we had this like diesel van. And my dream would be to have a bigger camper van that's electric, but I went to this road show in the US last year, and they're not quite there yet. There's like, you see the delivery trucks, but they've only got like 100 miles range, and then they need to recharge. And I'm like, that is not really a road trip.
Is that part of your mission though, to raise awareness for that automobile manufacturer? So, you know, guys, come on, let's get.
Well, I think it's patience. Yeah, just feel, you know, I'm chatting to this couple in the US. This is exciting. So they've built out this old, it's one of the, like a first generation electric cargo delivery van called an E-Star, which I think they're like out of business now.
Right.
But they were originally a European brand, and they've put 300 kilowatt hours of batteries in this van, which is like 3 times the amount my Tesla has.
Wow.
And that's a long range Tesla battery. So I can get like 300 miles out of my Tesla, but this is triple that. But it's a much heavier vehicle, but they reckon they can get 300 miles range on it, which is great.
Yeah.
But it's a full on camper van. And then what's even more exciting for me, which isn't plausible with smaller cars, but they have this solar array that opens out on the roof, which I think is like 8 or 9 kilowatts of solar panels, which is huge. It's like, but it's like lightweight solar.
Yeah.
And they can charge up that van within a day or 2 of sunshine, which seems like that's still a long time compared to like my Tesla I can charge in like 45 minutes. But it's pure like solar energy straight to the van. It's not like relying on a charging network. Again, it's not like, this isn't a mass adoptable plan for everybody to buy a massive solar charged camper van, but it's very exciting for me to explore those technologies. So I think something I'm playing around with is building a solar panel trailer that I can tow my my van in America with, park up for a few days, charge it up, continue the road trip. So I think that's something I'd like to play around with.
When you're planning a trip, do you typically like you plan where you're going, and then do you typically go and approach certain companies that might be solar panel specialists, or, you know, EVs and so on? Is that part of your process for your content planning, I guess?
I mean, I unfortunately don't plan a lot, which is probably I miss out on a lot of opportunities because of that. But when I drove across the US, I was looking at different ways to do it, because firstly, the van that I built out, so I built this 1973 van, I put Tesla batteries in it. It's only got like 150 mile range, which is challenging. And also a lot of America's so, North America, like the States, is so vast, and the charging network for what I needed just isn't really there.
It's slow tourism ultimately.
Yeah, so basically the advice I got was, well, if you stop at RV parks,
Right. Yeah.
because RV trips is like a massive thing in the States, and they have like this 50 amp chargers which you can charge, as you know, at least as fast as I can for my van. So that's what I ended up doing, was the day of, I'd be like, well, I think I can get to this location for tonight.
Yeah.
I call ahead. Have you got a spot for me? Cool. So that's about as much planning as I did. But yeah, I'd love to team up with some more solar companies. I think there's something exciting if we were to build some kind of mobile solar panel rig.
Yeah.
But I'd need some support in that, because it can get quite costly. And also you need to keep the weight of them down. So like the ones you mount on the roofs of your houses are all glass, so they're way too heavy.
Yeah.
So then you start to look into like carbon fiber solar panel.
I guess this technology, you know, keeps going leaps and bounds, and quickly battery, also capacity keeps increasing. So
yeah, and gets more efficient. But then I was watching a podcast with Joe Rogan and Elon Musk like last week, and he was pushing him on like, you know, are we going to get more effective solar panels? And Elon's like, not really. We've kind of maxed out on, it was something like a square meter is a kilowatt of solar energy.
Right.
And then I think the solar panel efficiency right now is like 25%. So maybe the efficiency could go, I don't know. But it's interesting.
Charge points as well, like the speed of the ability to speed up vehicles.
Yeah.
Fast charging. But yeah, he was, you know, his point was, you don't really need more range on the electric vehicles. It's all about the grid. If the grid's there and you can charge up quickly.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm just, you know, I'm not like obsessed with cars, but I think that more and more so last few years, I've been like, well, knowing that
travel.
Yeah, knowing that road tripping is one of my most favorite ways to travel. And then looking at how can I make that as green as possible. That's kind of where I've ended up. And I love problem solving and doing, playing with the challenges myself, which is why I think I got into the DIY element of it.
Yeah, the practical element.
And also, like, electric cars are quite expensive right now. So that's why I kind of liked the idea of, like, I've already got a car, the engine's blown. Either I replace the engine or let's look at this option of converting it to electric and how much would that cost. And I think I did it for like $20,000, which I don't know is like 15 grand here, which I think wasn't too expensive. I did a lot of the labor myself.
Yeah,
all of it really. I guess that is kind of still expensive. But I like anyway.
I think there's an influencer lunch happening in a minute. We're going to
I think off. Yeah, you're hearing a noise come through.
I feel like we could chat all day.
Any questions from the audience? I was thinking, does anyone have a question? Here we go. Yeah, so
lady at the front there.
Not sure if we have a mic or we might be able to hear you.
So I've watched your story go along, and you've always been really true to who you are. Have you ever lost touch and gone, I need time out here and I need to reevaluate what I'm doing and balancing who I am and not losing that, but still wanting to grow? I mean, I get the feeling with you, it's never been about numbers. It's kind of just evolved organically, and you've had this fantastic journey. It's been so much fun to watch. But where are you on that? Have you ever sort of had to go, what am I doing here? Rethink when it comes to brands and
I think for me, I had this. I've been on YouTube so long now. I feel like there's been so many ups and downs and roller coasters of how I've assessed what I'm doing. I think what I realized a couple of years ago was, like, sometimes go through phases where I just stop enjoying it, and then I'm like, why am I doing something I'm not enjoying? And then I look at, like, what is it I'm not enjoying about it? And it could be, I'm just getting a little bit sidetracked with the focus of what I'm focusing on, whether it's like, income or trying to do, it's not about pleasing people, but it's like trying to make videos that are going to do well, or like the algorithm rewards me for. And then I really came to this remembering that, like, I called my channel FunForLouis, which I've kind of like, I changed a lot of my social media handles just to Louis Cole, because I was like, I think I'm more than that brand, but I still do really resonate with, like, the central part of my content was always that I was actually having a lot of fun doing whatever I was doing, and it was coming from a place of genuine enjoyment. And I think that's what people quite like watching, is that I'm curious, I'm doing things that genuinely I enjoy, and if I'm not enjoying myself, it's kind of like I've lost the point for me.
I mean, I guess it's your career as well. Your career influenced you a little bit, and that must have an element of pressure as well.
Yeah, and I just think the key is, it's not about, like, not earning money or not working with brands, but it's like I've got to find that at the center of it is that I'm genuinely enjoying what I'm doing. And then I think everything else feels a lot easier. It doesn't feel like I'm burning out and that's stressed. It's like, let's get back to that, like, realign myself to, like, this has to come from a genuine place of passion. And I think that's good advice for anything people are doing in life. It's not even just content focused. It's like, whatever you're doing in life, try and refine that passion and excitement for it, because I think otherwise life becomes stressful, unenjoyable. Burnout's a lot easier because you're like, and life's not always enjoyable, but I think you can most of the time realign with that.
Yeah, definitely.
Beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and burnout happens when you're not following your, your path or your passion or what you should be doing, and you actually passion, isn't it? Yeah, thanks for that question. Do we have one more final question behind you there, please? And then I think after that we'll have to wrap it up.
I'm going to get ejected.
Yeah.
Hi, a similar sort of question, really. When you're actually on one of your trips, clearly you're passionate about traveling. You're doing it because you want to see the destinations, enjoy the experiences. How much does the actual filmmaking and the editing get in the way of your personal enjoyment of what you're doing? That need to always film the content, have the camera angles, or spend the time editing before you can move on to your next destination and all those elements?
Yeah, great question. I think back in the day, I was definitely behind the camera 24/7 because I was making daily videos when I first started. For years I was doing daily, and the editing became very second nature. It'd be like, it just meant I wasn't sleeping much. I'd, like, every night I'd just edit for a few hours, upload. But then the problem is content became flashier and flashier, better angles. People started using drones and beautiful like cinematics, and I felt this pressure, like, oh, I need to up the game. All my beautiful B-roll is like getting zoom lenses and more cameras and more drones. And it's just like, you know, after a while I was like having hundreds of gigabytes of footage a day with like 5 different cameras. And I'm like, this is a lot. And it kind of almost takes away from the storytelling.
Yeah.
And I think I did start getting burnt out. And I think I remember the moment I really burnt out was end of 2017. I circumnavigated the world in a small Cessna plane with my friend JP as the pilot. And I was daily vlogging over 3 months. I barely slept. We made a documentary as well, which was really cool. But I barely slept for 3 months. And it was like the most intense videos because we'd have like multiple GoPros rolling for hours on end, capturing audio of us chatting. And then I'd have to like scrub through all of that every night and like get little snippets. And then it was just like so mad. I enjoyed it, but at the end I was like, I hated editing. I just needed a break. And I think it was probably good that shifted for me, because now, especially with the baby, like we're only uploading every couple of weeks, a video on my channel and on the couple's channel. We do like 4 a month on our joint across the channels. And I actually am at the point now where the balance and the amount of work I'm doing means like I actually am enjoying the editing. Again, really enjoying it. And also the filming. I think what we've decided now is if we're going to a new place, often we'll spend a day there before we even get the cameras out.
Yeah.
Because we realize that it can take away from being present. And then we're in our mind, we're like, oh, we need to capture that angle. But now we're like, let's just spend a day just landing and like, just not having to film everything, you know? So I think that's a good.
So your narrative's changed a little bit.
Yeah.
Like feeding a place first and then getting.
Yeah. You see those stories and you see those images and you kind of really get a feel for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Right. Well, I think we're up on time or way over time, but yeah, really appreciate your time, Louis, and you know, sharing the stories, and we could probably go on forever, but yeah,
Thanks for having me.
Give Louis a round of applause, say thank you for that. And thank you all for being here and you know, joining in and, you know, partaking. And thanks to WTM, the organisers, for having me and Frank moderate this forum. So I hope it's been valuable. And if
It's been a good experience, and always learning, and it's great having Louis here as well.
Yeah, great to be here.
yeah, brilliant.